The Home Away from Home by Tessa Kluger. As humans, we tend to gravitate towards what we know and what we are comfortable with. Stepping outside of our comfort zone can be intimidating and difficult. Having grown up in the small town of Brighton, Michigan, I became used to being around the people and places I was most familiar and comfortable with. When I was presented with the opportunity to travel to Nigeria as an exchange student, I had doubts and worries about the trip. I feared the challenge of communicating in a foreign language, acclimating to an unfamiliar culture, and fitting in among my new peers. As I began investigating my host country, I was pleasantly surprised by what I found. Nigeria appeared to be more like Brighton than I had previously thought. Commonalities in language, as well as both verbal and nonverbal communication, helped put me at ease and gave me a new perspective on Nigeria and my trip. With the many similarities between Nigeria and the United States, Nigeria will truly feel like a home away from home. Through numerous self-assessments, I have been shown a clear picture of who I am as a communicator and my level of preparedness for integrating into Nigeria. Going into the trip, I feel confident in my abilities to successfully integrate. From the assessments, I concluded that my independence and individualism will help me make decisions and navigate my new surroundings with confidence. However, I will surely call upon my strong interpersonal communication skills when seeking additional guidance. I can picture my collectivistic tendencies coming into play as I seek opinions about things to do, places to visit, and food to try. Asking the locals for their insights and recommendations will definitely help give me a more authentic experience in Nigeria. Since I have low listening anxiety, I will easily be able to take in any information I am told. I view difficult topics as an opportunity to grow, learn, and challenge myself, characteristics which I believe are also an embodiment of this trip. As someone with low verbal aggressiveness, I will appear approachable to the locals I communicate with. Additionally, I will stay calm and collected while speaking with them. Thanks to my high nonverbal immediacy, the people around me will be more apt to like me, work with me, and learn from me, just as I hope to like, work with, and learn from them. Verbal communication will play a huge factor in my trip to Nigeria. As noted by Global Affairs Canada, in official settings in particular, Nigerians love titles, and those that have them consider themselves privileged and want to be addressed as such. Superiors and subordinates expect to be addressed as Mr., Miss, or Mrs., followed by their last name, unless they have said otherwise, while close friends can be addressed by their first name. To show respect to others, I intend on using titles or other specified appropriate forms of address. There is another branch of the communication tree known as nonverbal communication. According to Edwards, Wall, and Myers, nonverbal communication includes all the ways we communicate without using words. This encompasses behaviors such as eyes, their movement, facial expressions, touching, spatial distance between people, tone of voice, dress, and posture. The way someone acts and presents themselves can help to convey their message, as well as help the listener derive additional meaning from the things that are or are not being said. Facial expressions and tone of voice are important in Nigerian communication. According to Global Affairs Canada, a loud and sharp voice can be regarded as unwelcoming and hostile, while an indifferent facial expression can be read as obnoxious or plain ignorance. These forms of address, facial expressions, and tone of voice seem typical of what I am accustomed to in the United States, so I do not foresee any difficulties with this area of my integration. Officially, such as in government or business, Nigerians are expected to communicate in much the same way as in Western countries. Similar to the spatial distance adhered to during conversations in the United States, the standard distance of communication in Nigeria is an arm's length according to Global Affairs Canada. While this aspect of nonverbal communication is something I am familiar with, there are two nonverbal practices in Nigeria that I will need to familiarize myself with. In the United States, I have been taught to maintain eye contact with people while speaking to them and while listening to them to show respect and prove that I am paying attention. In Nigeria, I will need to avoid maintaining eye contact since it is considered confrontational or rude according to Global Affairs Canada. Instead, I will need to focus my gaze toward the forehead or shoulder in order to avoid making people feel uncomfortable. Touching and making gestures when speaking is very common practice in Nigeria. I commonly use gestures while speaking to convey meaning. However, I do not touch others since I see it as an invasion of personal space. This is a product of my upbringing in a low-context culture, but I will need to prepare myself to experience this once I arrive in Nigeria. Since conversations are not one-sided, I will need to be mindful of the traits of an effective listener in order to successfully engage with others in Nigeria. One way for me to do this, according to Global Affairs Canada, is to ask about the welfare of someone's family. This shows thoughtfulness, which is appreciated by the country's citizens. Like in the United States, conversations can be interrupted. In Nigeria, however, according to Global Affairs Canada, it is recommended that a person takes a neutral position or takes the role of a moderator if a third party cuts into the discussion without invitation to defend his or her interest. By doing this, one can avoid taking sides. This practice seems a bit unusual to me since I am used to defending what I believe in. While this is different from what I am used to, I do not think it will be a difficult practice to adopt. By traveling to Nigeria, I will be experiencing a unique culture. One of the best ways to gain social acceptance in the country, as stated by Global Affairs Canada, is to watch football, or soccer matches, with the Nigerians since they are passionate about the sport. The same source states that another way to fit in is to eat typical food rather than eating at a posh, upmarket hotel or restaurant. It both surprises and delights the Nigerians when foreigners do this. Participating in these local activities will show the locals that I am interested in what their country and culture has to offer. Another component of the country's culture is the state of its economy. An overdependence on oil, which constitutes about 95% of generated revenue, is an issue that has been recognized by the Nigerian government, as reported by the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. To generate a stronger and stable growth rate, the government is promoting the increased production in the non-oil sector of the economy by creating a level playing field for private sector-led activity. Agriculture and agribusiness, solid minerals development, manufacturing including information and communications technology, crude oil, natural gas, and tourism are just a few of the areas for which the country's economic growth and development will revolve. The most shocking yet exciting aspect of my trip to Nigeria will be the language. The challenge of learning and communicating in a new language was by far my biggest fear about becoming an exchange student in Nigeria. The country is home to more than 520 languages, according to Joyce Chepkemoi. However, English is the country's official language. The English language was introduced in Nigeria by the British when the country was under British colonial rule, according to Chepkemoi. Discovering this lack of a language barrier was definitely a weight off my shoulders. The English spoken in Nigeria, otherwise known as Nigerian English, is inspired by British English rather than American English. Chepkemoi reports that Nigerian English contains a number of phrases and words that are exclusive to Nigerian English. While I will not be submersed in an entirely new language, I will still get the experience of learning bits and pieces of a new language. Besides English, there are several other major languages spoken throughout the country, including Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo. These are languages spoken in specific regions across the country. Both Hausa and Yoruba can be found in West Africa, while Igbo can be heard in the country's southeastern region. Presently, Nigeria is facing several prevalent political and governmental issues. A Pew Research Center survey conducted in the summer of 2018 showed evidence of negative sentiment in the country about the state of the economy and political system. The survey found that few Nigerians are satisfied with the state of their democracy. Only 39% of Nigerians reported that they are satisfied with the way democracy is working in their country, while 60% say they are not satisfied. Additionally, many Nigerians are skeptical about the country's political and judicial systems. It is clear that the people view the government in a very poor light. The issues in the political realm are also affected by the two major religious groups in the country, Christians and Muslims. These groups have very different views of the political system. In terms of satisfaction with the state of democracy in Nigeria, the Christians are largely unsatisfied while the Muslims are mostly satisfied. According to Global Affairs Canada, issues such as religion, ethnic, political, economic, and social are common topics of discussion. Keeping this in mind, it will be in my best interest to have some knowledge of these topics so that I can participate in conversations on the subject. During my time in Nigeria, I intend on being involved with organizations that I am already passionate about. The first organization is the International Youth Foundation. In Nigeria, the International Youth Foundation works to prepare Nigeria's young people to join and succeed in the workforce by equipping the country's youth with life skills, employability, and entrepreneurship training. These particular activities are business-related, just like my area of study. Delta Sigma Pi is the second organization that I want to be involved in during my stay in Nigeria. This is a professional co-ed business fraternity that serves the community and helps foster professionalism among its members. However, since there is not an existing chapter in this area, I'll just have to found one. Since I am one of the founding members of the Phi Omega chapter of Delta Sigma Pi at Cleary University, I believe that I possess the knowledge to work with and assist a group of dedicated individuals in founding Nigeria's first chapter of Delta Sigma Pi. The creation of a new chapter would tie in nicely with the business-minded work I would be doing with the International Youth Foundation. Perhaps I could even get people working with the International Youth Foundation to help me start the new chapter. Working with the International Youth Foundation and Delta Sigma Pi will allow me to share my business knowledge and create new opportunities for the youth of Nigeria. What first appeared to be a trip full of uncertainties turned out to be an extension of many things I see in my daily life. The people I meet, the places I go, the things I try, and the lasting impressions I make will undoubtedly make traveling to Nigeria a memorable experience. As I prepare for my trip, I am comforted by the fact that Nigeria is soon to be my home away from home.